in just 30 seconds or so, or maybe it's streaming live right now. Commissioner Grossberg is unable to attend this evening. Just
okay.
There we go.
So, good evening, everybody. I will call to order the regular meeting of the Park District of Highland Park on Tuesday, October 26, 2021 at 6:01 p.m. I will read the announcement pursuant to Section 7E of the Open Meetings Act. The President of the Board of Park Commissioners has made a finding that it is not practical or prudent to hold in-person meetings because of the COVID-19 public health emergency. Neither the elected officials nor the public will be allowed to attend regular or committee meetings in person, but will participate virtually by means described below. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Bernstein.
Here.
Commissioner Kaplan.
Here.
Commissioner Freeman.
Here.
President Ruttenberg.
I'm here as well, and we have a quorum. Executive Director Romes, are there any additions to the agenda?
No additions to the agenda.
Is there anyone from the public attending tonight's meeting?
Currently, there is nobody from the public attending the meeting. However, there were a few residents who did register to attend. So if they do end up attending the meeting, I will inform you of their attendance.
All right, at which point we will then deal with that part of the ordinance. Let us move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein.
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan.
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman.
Aye.
President Ruttenberg.
I am voting aye. Also, the motion is carried. I'd like to change the sequencing of the meeting, if it's okay with the park board, to move unfinished business, which is the Park Avenue Wave Protection presentation. Since we have a guest presenter, is there anyone who's opposed to this request? Hello, Annette. All right, is there anyone opposed to doing so? Hearing none. Park Avenue Wave Protection, Director Smith, to introduce.
All right, thank you very much. So at the September 28th board meeting, the Board of Commissioners had awarded a contract to Smith Group for Phase 3 final engineering and permitting for the Park Avenue breakwater and boat ramp replacement project. Now, under that contract, Smith Group has now completed task 3.1, which is optimized breakwater and boat ramp layout, which the first step before we move into the detailed design. And so at this point, they're going to provide a little bit of an overview of this process. We've got both Mark Wagstaff and Rob Wright from Smith Group, and I'm going to hand it over to Mark.
Great.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening, commissioners. I'm now going to try and see if I can share my screen. And hopefully, if I hit share, hopefully you will now be seeing the title slide. Brian's nodding. That's always good.
Looks good.
Good. Okay. So thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. You set this up perfectly, so we're going to kind of move right along. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about the optimization and some of the value engineering that we have undertaken. We have an updated cost opinion, and then we can kind of walk through what some of the next steps would be. And of course, happy to take your questions as we go or at the end, accommodate, sort of whatever you prefer. So the schedule for this phase, we have completed the 3.1, the optimized breakwater layout. The next part would be to do, take it through the development of the design details, permit applications, And then final construction documents would be due to the Park District in the middle of January. So this was what I had shared with you in September. We were basically looking at two alternatives at that time. There was the caisson alternative, then there was the sheet pile alternative. They were very, very comparable in terms of cost. So you'll see what we've been focused on is the sheet pile alternative, and then you'll see some updates to that in just a minute. So this was the initial concept that we had started with. We were looking at overtopping and stability and ice and different materials and construction sequence kind of items to try to see if we could find some ways to either improve the project or reduce the overall cost. And one of the things that we've been pretty well aware of in the last, certainly in the last couple days, but this photograph was from towards the end of September, is when we think about what's going on at the boat ramp and the breakwater and how the breakwater is protecting the boat ramp, we also have to remember that the adjacent property is at a fixed elevation. And so this photograph, which is taken from the berm by the water plant, you can see that there's a lot of water which is coming over that parking area and getting to where the top of the ramp would be, where it's closed off right now. So regardless of how big we made the breakwater, there are going to be conditions where the breakwater is not going to be providing protection from waves, and overtopping water from the north. So even if the breakwater was, 10 feet out of the water here, you would still have difficulty bringing vehicles, up to the top of the ramp. So this is one of the things we want to make the breakwater as, we want to make it safe. We want to have it, provide good conditions for boaters, but at the same time, we are constrained, or we have to recognize those constraints from the adjacent area. So this is how we have sort of refined the design. There are three main items that are different. We've increased the width of the structure. That helps a lot with the overall stability of the structure. It also gives more room for different uses on top of it. We've added a parapet wall on the lakeside that would help to reduce some of the overtopping at the breakwater and protect the ramp itself. And then we have we've narrowed down and reduced the armor stone out in front. And by doing that, that's one of the biggest areas of cost savings. So it's the same concept, but the features refined to be more efficient. So just a couple examples of what that parapet wall might look like. This one on the left of the screen, you can see it was formed using these temporary blocks. That's basically just kind of a straight edge. This is a curved example over on the right that's in Chicago. And you can see in the bottom right, that photograph actually was taken today. So you can see how in the area where there is no wall, the waves are coming right over the top, and where the wall is in place, the overtopping is reduced. That doesn't mean that it isn't overtopped in some conditions, but it just shows sort of how that feature works. So as we as we continue to look through the major construction cost components, we've been continuing outreach to contractors who are doing this kind of work, looking for ways that we can try to optimize the design. So I have an example to share with you. This is from the entrance to Jackson Harbor at 63rd Street in Chicago. So this project was originally bid as a fairly narrow sheet pile structure. The contractor offered a value engineering option where they made it wider, and in doing so, it meant that they could essentially construct it from land and not have to put the crane on a barge, and that increased their productivity. So even though there was some extra fill, it made it a much more efficient operation for them. So they kind of walk the crane out, extending the breakwater as they go. And then on the way back, they start with the concrete at the furthest end and then work their way kind of back to land. So that was one of the reasons that we started to look at having if we went with a wider structure. It's not necessarily intuitive that would be cheaper, but it does facilitate different construction methodologies. And also when we were looking at stability, we found that it was a better arrangement as well. So just summary then of those modifications. We're looking at a wider structure, the addition of the parapet wall. I didn't mention, we're looking at a 2-foot wall height. I should have mentioned that when we were looking at that previous slide. Reducing the scour stone, that allows us to reuse some existing material that's out there, and then trying to use as much of the existing material, broken concrete and so on as we can as fill for that, for the sheet pile structure. So in doing all of that, we're able to reduce now the cost of that sheet pile alternative, so that it is now actually turns out to be a slightly cheaper alternative than the caisson alternative. So all of those, that reduction is within the breakwater construction itself. So the way that we kind of get to that, there were some increases, some decreases, but the net change is about $120,000 cheaper than the number that we had presented to you when we came in September. Not bad for a month's work. And so I think Jeff may have shared this image, but this kind of shows sort of, roughly speaking, kind of what we are looking at. The breakwater, being wide, not quite as wide as the existing barge. It would end up being a little bit narrower, but the ramp being now wider for the two-way traffic. And so in terms of what's coming next, so, with your approval, we would now be moving into, examining all of and laying out all of the details on the sheet pile, the tie rods, all of the metal connections, the concrete, railings, all of the other aspects of the project, get the permit submitted into the state and the Corps of Engineers, and outline what we would be looking at for the project specifications. And I believe that may be the last slide. But yeah, I'm certainly happy to take any questions that you may have.
Right, is there anything further from staff?
No, there's not.
All right, let's see if anybody has any questions. Let's start with Brian Kaplan.
No questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Jen,
No questions. Pretty clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cal,
I have questions. Let's begin with, I believe, Mark, you stated that regardless of what the structure that is placed there, there's always going to be topping. Is that what I heard correct?
Yeah, so if I go back to this was the image. So this was the conditions when we have, particularly when we have high lake levels, and then a wave event. The parking area in the water plant, which is north of the ramp, that's at a given elevation. It's about 585. So there's going to be times when that gets overtopped. So
You're talking about where the sheet pile is, right? Along the eastern wall of the
yeah,
parking
the
lot.
sheep, exactly. And so, this image sort of shows, fairly clearly that, as the waves roll over, the water kind of comes, moves down towards the south. That's kind of the momentum, the direction of the waves are taking the water. So on a day like we had, in September 22nd this year, or certainly, if you had been out there yesterday, you would have seen something, very similar to this. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that, regardless of what we do with the breakwater, there are going to be some occasions where either the ramp is not accessible, or it's not going to be safe for people to be approaching it, whether they're in vehicles or trying to get out onto the breakwater.
Okay, I understand. So
yeah.
so I understand it. So what we're looking at this picture is not necessarily it's causing this water. Is what you're saying is, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, is the topping is not from the barge location, but it's actually further north in the parking lot where the sheet metal is, just east of the water plant. The water's topping there, and then it's flowing from north to south because of the elevation change. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so you can kind of see that the waves in this picture, they have a kind of a northeast sort of direction to them. So they as they come up to the wall, it's like would be to the left here, to the north. They kind of roll over that wall, and the momentum just kind of carries that water on down towards the bottom. And then obviously, because we had these concrete barriers are in place, is causing part of this to kind of pond up a little bit, and exaggerate the effect. But even if these were not here, you would still have water coming over that would then be trying to go down to the boat ramp. So
what you're saying is, even if we built the Great Wall of China, a portion of it right there at this location, we're still going to have topping, and it's still got water still going to overflow into the parking lot, and it's still going to migrate from north to south to the boat launch, regardless of how tall the wall is.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But what I think you also said is that by this new design that you're suggesting with the wider footprint, and the parapet walls, it would help mitigate the topping at this location. I'm talking about basically south of the sheet pedal to where the barge is located. It would mitigate that. It would reduce
Yes.
the likelihood of topping there. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes. It would make it much less. Yeah. And it would make it much less energetic, so whereas right now these waves are kind of rolling in, they're crashing into the side of the barge, they're coming over and then landing where the ramp is. It's a very, very, energetic situation. What we want is to, break up as much of that. There are going to be times where particularly when lake levels are high, and you get a significant storm, that there would continue to, we're not going to eliminate it. We could build it higher, but as I'm saying here, there's not any real benefit to building it higher, because we get this water from the north that would come down. So we also want to make this to be, we don't want this to be like the lowest point. We want this to be safer and more protective than the area to the side, because we want to get the best conditions we can for boaters. As they're, coming in or going out. But I just want you to know that there are going to be times when it won't be safe to bring a vehicle up here. And that's not because of the new breakwater design. It's because of the site constraints.
Okay, so there's two investments that we're being asked to make. Investment number one is the replacing the barge. And you've described it well about the footprint being wider, the parapet wall, and mitigating the wave energy, at least at that portion of the lakefront. There's still going to be some wave energy hitting the sheet pile to the north, but that's going to happen regardless, because that's not part of our project. So regardless of that, I understand that concept. The second investment that we're being asked to make is replacing the boat launch, which is actually the cement going into the lake. And then
Yep.
there's also the correlating sand ramp that is directly to the west of the boat launch.
Yeah,
So
down
my
over
next
here.
question is how will the topping that inevitably going to happen where the barge replacement is, wherever that structure is, and the topping that's happening to the north that is not part of this project, how is that energy, how's that water going to impact our investment in the boat ramp?
So the boat ramp itself will be protected by the new breakwater from a lot of the impact from the waves. There still would be some of this water that would be kind of running down over the top of it. That's not going to damage it. It's going to be the concrete for the new boat ramp is going to be, adequate to take that. And because our new structure here is going to be higher than the barge and have the parapet wall, we aren't going to have the same kind of condition that we have right now, which has caused the existing boat ramp itself to be undermined and to collapse. So there's two things with.
I get that. So I understand that the conditions now cause the boat ramp to deteriorate, to be undermined and basically collapse so it's unusable. My question is, again, I just want to make sure I understand this completely, is that if we make this improvement and we still have this inevitable topping coming from over the parapet wall, also from the north, but both of those, the wave energy will be such at a lower level and the water will be at a position where it's not going to damage our second investment, which is the boat launch.
Yes.
Okay.
And the boat launch will be more robust than the one that you had previously. So yes, it will be better protected. Well, so what you had previously was partially cast in place concrete and partially very thin concrete planks. The new ramp will be entirely cast in place concrete, reinforced concrete. So it will be a stronger ramp and it will be better protected. So
got it. Okay. All right. Thank you. Those are my questions. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Mark, thank you. This is a good presentation. A couple maybe aesthetic questions. Looking at this picture, the sheet pile that's extended from the north to the south under that right there.
Yep.
Is that the height? Explain to me the height. Are we going to have a continuous floor running from the parking lot through the end of the barge, or is there going to be a height differential?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I think probably the best way to show that is just in this sketch here. So the elevation of the main portion of the breakwater here, the concrete slab is going to match the elevation of the existing parking area in front of the water plant. So this is at around about 585, and that's the elevation that our new structure is going to go. There may be a little bit of just to sort of match them up, it may be that we end up being a little bit higher, but it's essential. We'll make that a pretty smooth transition.
Okay,
And then the parapet wall that we're proposing along this lakeside face would then extend up another 2 feet higher than the main part of the concrete deck.
and how does that 2 feet of parapet integrate with the wall on the water plant? Is
So
that the
it
same-
would,
I'm sorry.
no,
go
it
ahead.
would be, so it would be higher than the, it would be higher than the concrete deck elevation. Oh, I think what you're
There is
asking.
there's steel sheet piles coming
Oh.
up from the water plant side.
Yeah, so on the water, so there's a guardrail on the water plant side. And
okay.
then, so it would be a comparable height to the guardrail. The guardrail is probably a little bit more than 2 feet, but it would be comparable
Okay, and-
to that.
Are the sheet piles that are there shown going to be removed?
Those would be, I think what we would probably do there is cut those off
Okay,
at the lake bed. They wouldn't be needed any longer. They wouldn't be doing anything. So yeah, I think we would just cut those down.
okay. Why are you offsetting the new ramp to the west as opposed to lining it up with the existing edge of the parking lot?
Yeah, so I think, so what we're trying to do is make the permitting process as smooth as possible.
Mhm.
So it's a little hard to see, but this dashed line represents the existing barge.
Mhm.
And then this is where the existing ramp is 32 feet wide. So we're making the ramp wider to 40 feet. Then this is 22 feet. And then with the scour stone, we are essentially within the footprint of where the barge is. If we made the if we made the breakwater structure as wide as the existing barge, then our scour stone that we do need would be pushing us out. The regulators they're always more comfortable if you're building within the existing footprint rather than going further. It's not to say that it couldn't be done. So that's one reason. And then the other reason is making this structure wider has helped a lot with the stability of the overall structure. But if we were to make it wider still, that would, at that point, we would now no longer be quite as optimized, and we would be kind of adding cost back in. We would have, more concrete on the ramp, all of the connecting metal would be more. We would potentially have, we're designing this concrete slab to be able to carry a vehicle should an emergency vehicle need to go onto it. Making it wider would have an additional cost impact at this point.
No, I wasn't thinking of making it wider. I'll be, that corner that we have between the end of our facility and the water plant is going to accumulate debris, and it's just going to get dirty. And so, but I was just wondering why we just didn't line everything up and just move everything over the couple feet, not to widen it, but to move everything over.
Move everything over and then make the ramp wider. So there is the existing sheet pile wall that we still have. I mean, it could be done. I mean, we would then be going kind of out beyond, so we would have a slightly different permitting arrangement. So that, but and obviously then to make, the boat launch would then be also more expensive if it were
Yeah,
an
okay, I
additional.
understand. I understand.
So-
Yeah, I'm just concerned
Yeah.
about that corner, where we're gonna have not only debris, but we're gonna have people who are learning how to sail get caught in that corner. And it's an experience that I have had. So I was just wondering if
Yeah.
there's something we could do to,
Yeah.
break it up a little bit. That's all.
So you're talking about kind of right in here, I think. Is that correct? So
Right there.
Right where the water plant wall, yeah, right in
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I'm not saying redesign it just because of that, but it's something to look into, because that will trap both debris and, there's potential for some problems with that. But, okay, other than that, I don't have any qualms about this new project. Oh, I did have one question. I'm sorry. Let me ask you. What's the height and using today's water level between the floating dock and the top of the walk that we have here?
Okay. So are you talking about today's water level first thing this morning or now? Because it's changed by.
I know, it's an
a foot
approximation.
since, as the storms eased. Yeah. So we're probably at right around somewhere between water level 580, 581, somewhere in there. Let's call it 581. The floating dock normally sort of sits about 12 inches up out of the water or thereabouts. So the top of that is, say, at 582.
Mhm.
And then the top of the concrete is at 585. So at today's water level, it would be, maybe, 2 or 3 feet or something like that. Obviously, it would be totally dependent on what that water level is.
Okay, 3 feet's not an egregious, we can paint some, some slogans or something on that, I suppose, to give it some decoration. All right, I have no other questions. I think this is a really good way of addressing some of the concerns, and especially some of the concerns of the community, because it is now a multitasking facility.
Bernie, I have couple more questions, if you don't mind.
Sure, we'll go back to Cal.
Okay, Mark, since the footprint of this structure has gotten wider, is there a need to study, was it called the lateral flow, to make sure it does negatively impact the properties to the north or south of it?
Yeah, you're talking about, like, would we be blocking sand
Yes.
from? Yeah, no, because we are entirely within the existing footprint of the barge. We're not any wider than we would be having. There would be no negative impact from doing this.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, what are the next steps then?
I believe there's a hand up or someone in the
Oh,
audience.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
There, actually, we do have a few attendees, one who has their hand. Those who want to allow for public comment at this time.
Given the interactive nature of this, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call Chad Birkin to so he should be activated.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Assume you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you good.
Yep.
Okay. Mark, thanks for a really good presentation. Just from my perspective, the high cost of demolition of the existing barge, has that been weighed against what the alternatives are? And I'll just use the word to entomb that barge as opposed to total demolition.
Yeah, so we had, prior to coming to this point with this optimization phase, we actually had looked at a lot of different alternatives. One of the primary reasons for going with the removal. Well, there's really two main things. First of all, it's in now such a deteriorated condition that, you know, it's hard to know exactly sort of what's there. So even if we build over it, it probably is not very stable. And so, you know, it may continue to deteriorate. But also, if we were to build over it, that would encroach to the west, and it would make the space available for the boat launch that much narrower. So the only way to kind of entomb the barge and would be to have a boat ramp that's actually narrower than you currently have. And so in a lot of the previous discussions, it was, although there is a large cost to getting rid of the existing barge, there's a lot of value to being able to have a wider ramp.
Thank you. That explains it. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Sure.
Okay. Nobody else has their hand raised at this point. There are a couple people here in the audience, I assume maybe for public comment later, unless you want to take any.
Now, let's just stay with this.
Okay, good.
I did want to go back to one question now that we've had those comments. What is our cost to proceed to the next stage?
Yeah,
So
that's
we're under the contract that we've already approved. We'll just move it on to phase 3.2 and 3.3. And so what we're looking for tonight is essentially consensus or approval that this is the direction we'd like to go. And then Smith Group will formally begin the design development phase.
And just to confirm, there is no formal approval needed. We have received feedback and we're looking for consensus to move forward with.
Right, but when we talked about the contract, it was definitely done in stages. And it was needing, we discussed that to move to the next stage under that contract, we would have to discuss the cost and get a consensus that we should move to and through the next stage. That's why I was asking, what is the cost to complete the next stage?
Well, the board has approved the contract that brings us all the way to 3.4 final construction documents. We have a formal approval for that. I can provide a breakdown if you'd like of what the costs associated with each task are, but we do have approval to finalize this entire phase, bringing us to construction.
Jeff, thank you. Yes, I'm very much aware of that. I'm also aware that at the time we approved going through the next stage and getting the cost locked in to complete it, we had said we would want to specifically discuss moving into the next phase and making sure that the board had consensus to move into the next stage under the terms of our contract. And that's why I'd like to know what the cost is to move into the design development stage.
Well, that is something I'm going to have to come back to the board with. Unfortunately, I don't have that breakdown in front of me at this time.
Is it in your office or available to you if we postpone this then?
Well, unfortunately, it's not. I pulled the contract, and the contract that we were supplied, that we approved, gives us a total amount. So it'll have to be a conversation with Smith Group to get their breakout, which I don't have.
Yeah, so we have provided a lump sum to go from 3.1 to 3.4. And that contract, as Jeff said, was approved. We said that we would come back to you after 3.1 and, and show you, that we had, the intent was, can we, reduce the cost down of the overall structure. So I can get with Jeff and if we would be able to provide, I can't do it right now, but I could, tell you what what we have spent to date out of that amount, and then what is the remaining amount from the approved contract? I just don't have that figure in
No,
front
no,
of me.
I understand, and I'm quite honestly a little bit disturbed that we don't have those numbers, because, again, I will reiterate, we had specifically said, well, if we decided to, we could stop at any point. There would be cost to reach each point. And so I don't know, first of all, I don't remember what the total cost of the contract is. And I know we were going to be careful about that, given the financial burden that this puts on the park district. Now, this is something that I find a little bit disconcerting, that we don't have any numbers and that we can't get the numbers tonight, yet you want us to tell you to go ahead. Now, I don't know what the views are of my other commissioners, but I'm very reluctant to just not knowing how much we're going to spend for the design development.
So the total contract amount is $77,000 for 3123.
Yeah, but this one, which is, go ahead, Mark, I'm grabbing the wrong one here.
Yep. So this is the total for this contract is $77,000, and that was agreed as a lump sum contract with the park district. That was what was approved. So
I will stress that I do recall this question, and in response to that, we did go back to Smith Group and confirm that at any point, if the district chose to stop during this phase, we would only be obligated to pay the work that's already been completed. So with
Correct.
that, we did do. However, we did not get the breakdown for each phase.
Mr. President, I have a suggestion.
Yes, Cal.
Okay, since tonight there's no formal action being taken, there's no vote. The executive director, I believe, is just looking for a consensus of the board. My suggestion is that instead of them trying to get the information on the fly right now to us, is that they take tomorrow, get the information, have the executive director contact up each of us individually in order to provide us with that information, and then be able then at that point he can poll the board individually with regard to whether we take the next step at that point.
That's an excellent idea, Cal. I can cross off my notes because I was sort of going there.
Okay.
Great minds think alike. Is that acceptable to our other commissioners? Jen?
Yep.
Brian?
Yep.
All right, so then let's proceed in that way. And this is not to say, by the way, that it isn't going to be go gangbusters. I think this is a really significant, better design approach, call it what you want. And do appreciate that the cost came down by about $100,000, which is always beneficial. But let's put it in those terms, and you'll get us the numbers tomorrow then, or the day after. Is that okay?
We will do that.
All right, thank you. And that is not to take away from the thought, anybody's good work, and not to take away from, the desires to make a project happen, but we do have to be conscious of the costs and the funding. All right, thank you. Go back then to our, I think we're now ready for financial forecast treasurer's report. Director Peters. You're not Director Peters. Are we having a communications blackout?
Maryland's having potentially some camera issues there, but you are muted, Maryland.
Okay. Hopefully, am I not muted anymore?
You are loud and clear, and you can see your screen.
Beautiful. Okay, good evening. We have our financial forecast and treasurer's report for the period ended September 30th, 2021. All right, we're going to start with our actuals for the period ended 9/30/21, which is our operations, general, and recreation funds. We start looking at our actual revenue versus our budgeted revenue. We are up about $50,000 more in revenue than where we had budgeted to be at the end of September. And as far as expenses are concerned, we're about $1.7 million under budget. That is largely due to payroll expenses. And we also are still not showing the $200,000 or so in busing costs that should hit in October. Also, we have a savings of roughly $600,000 of insurance expense, and that ties back to the $400,000 savings in payroll expense. And then two, if you recall, back in January and February, we had closings and mitigations in effect due to COVID-19. If we come over and we look at our year-to-date net difference, actual versus budget, we can see we are ahead of budget for the end of September by about $2.2 million. This number is significantly less than what we previously showed you. And what has happened is, if you look at the peak here of what we budgeted from August to September versus what really happened August to September, because I expect it to be up here. Very strange, but our taxes did not come in as they normally do. We usually get a very large payment in September, and that did not come to fruition. However, I can tell you this past Friday, which was October 22nd, we did receive over $2 million in property taxes, and roughly $1.4 million is operating property taxes. And so if you want to think of it, really this number should be much larger, right, by almost $1.5 million. So it's a timing difference in taxes that for whatever reason they slowed down versus how they came in previous years, years prior to the COVID. So then when we look at our year-to-date net difference, our actual versus the 3-year average, which is the 2017 through 2019 averages, we are ahead of those pre-COVID average years by about 1.1 million. And again, if you wanted to sort of eliminate timing differences, you could really add another 1.4 million here for property taxes, but those will come in October. We already have them, and then we will see this line separate itself from the budget again. When we look at the general fund, we can see in our revenues, our actual revenue versus budgeted. Again, we're showing that that we are short by about $650,000. Again, we know that we should have gotten about $700,000 in property taxes in, which would have put us over where we budgeted to be. And again, that will hit in January. That is already money in the bank. On the expense side, we are under budget by about $1 million, and that is largely attributed to payroll savings that then has related insurance savings. Also some contractual services that didn't come to fruition or came in cheaper, and a little bit of a timing difference. So overall, at the end of September, we're showing about $300,000 net difference between actual versus budget. And then if we compare ourselves back to just 2019, we're actually behind where we were at September 30th, 2019 by about $250,000. Again, you know, if we put that $700,000 in that didn't come in, the timing difference, we'd really be up by about $500,000 versus where we were at the end of September 2019. We look at the recreation fund, we can see that our actual revenues are greater than expenses by about $1 million. And again, so just to explain to you, the property taxes, they should have been about $700,000 to the rec fund and about $700,000 in the general fund. So this difference you see here, this $1 million, we should really be at about $1.7 million had the taxes come in when we expected them to be. But again, we will see that in October. So what's driving this difference here, since it's not property taxes, we have several facilities that are doing much better in their revenue than where they were budgeted. And that would include Westridge Center, athletics, camp, Centennial, ice, golf, tennis, and consolidated recreation. On the expense side of things, we can see that our expenses are less than budget by about $700,000. And that is largely due to salary savings, salaries that haven't come to fruition, as well as related insurance. And then also, if we go back and look at January and February, when we had closures and mitigations there, we saved on expenses too. And then also, again, not in here is about $200,000 of busing from camps that will hit in October. So when we look over here at our net difference, actual versus budget, we're about $2 million better than where better than our original budget. Again, you could add another $700,000 to that with timing difference. And then when we compare ourselves to 2019, we're about $500,000 better than that year. And again, that extra $700,000 of property taxes that hasn't hit would really put us at about 1.2 million better end of third quarter versus end of third quarter 2019. And so we'll move on to our next slide. We're doing another shortened presentation here. So we'll go to our conclusion. So in January of 2021, Park District programs and facilities were either partially closed or canceled due to COVID mitigation efforts. Since then, the Park District was able to significantly adjust expenses, especially payroll at $400,000 below budget, resulting in over $2 million above budgeted net revenue. This number does not contain the couple $100,000, in busing in it. And they have yet to have our property taxes come through that timing difference of about $1.4 million. And finally, for the period ended September 30th, 2021, we see athletics has a surplus of $250,000 more than its budget. Camps is at $220,000 greater than budget. Tennis has a surplus of $390,000 more than budget. Golf is at $719,000 more than budget. Recreation is at $200,000 more than budget. Westridge is at $103,000 more than budget. And Centennial Ice is at $125,000 more than budget. In fact, all cost centers but two are operating a surplus at the end of September. So all this places the Park District in a very favorable financial position at the end of September. Does anyone have any questions?
Before we do that, let's note to the public that Commissioner Kaplan, who was feeling ill, departed the meeting at 6:46 p.m. Now, any questions starting with Jen?
None. Thanks for our wonderful committee meeting and excellent report.
Thank you.
Cal?
I really don't have any questions. I just have a comment. Again, it's very encouraging that all the hard work over the last year and a half of the unknown impact that COVID was going to have on the Park District and all the hard work that everybody put in, staff, and I wouldn't even say commissioners too, but many more meetings than we signed up for in order to monitor the situation. And I think that I want to applaud the staff for really doing an excellent job in making sure that the district was able to come through this COVID. We're still in it, but be able to survive it and to thrive. And I also want to acknowledge my fellow commissioners who've spent a lot of time and a lot of meetings going over these charts. So we know these charts pretty well. And I look forward to next month. I believe that they'll probably be more accurate because of tax receipts. And so I look forward to seeing those reports then. But I just want to, I can't say it enough because everyone, it's a team effort. And I think that we have a really good team. So thanks.
Very nicely said, Cal. Those are exactly the things I was going to say, so I won't say it. No, very, very, very good, Marilyn. There's no other questions. I guess we'll move on. Any reason not to? I don't see any.
You know what? Can I say more? I'm sorry, I did forget to say, and you'll see this in your report this Friday. So with the tax collections that came in on Friday, we are at slightly above 95% collection then for the year, and we do anticipate being over our usual 99% because we'll have another distribution coming up in November.
Oh, good. Good point.
Just so you know.
Okay, well, don't go away.
I won't.
I'm going to read the introduction, which I think is half of the presentation. Approval of ordinance 2021-04, an ordinance providing for the issue of not to exceed $22,750,000 general obligation limited tax debt certificates series 2021 of the Park District, evidencing the rights to payment under installment purchase agreements for the purpose of paying the cost of purchasing real or personal property or both in and for the Park District, providing for the refunding of certain outstanding debt certificates of the Park District, and providing for the security for and means of payment of the certificates. Director Peters.
Okay, thank you. So hopefully everyone sees my screen. We have been through an elongated version of this presentation at the past 2 Finance Committee meetings. So we're really just, I pulled out 3 slides in total, just to have a quick recap of what we are intending to do with that very verbose ordinance 2021-04. So we'll just move right along here. Okay, so all right, we're going to discuss first the refunding part of tomorrow's issuance if our ordinance passes this evening. We have outstanding debt certificates that we are looking to refund tomorrow. They are the 2012 and 2013 certificates that are callable this December 15th, 2021. They have an outstanding remaining principal balance of about $5.5 million that we'll pay off. And by paying those off early, we will save the district roughly $250,000 in interest. Also, this refunding, because we're doing it within 90 days of the call date, will be tax exempt, which is exactly how we want to be. And then when we refund debt certificates, we can amortize payments differently to create payment flexibility and issue additional debt. And so what this ordinance proposes is that we're issuing additional debt of $17 million. If we want to look at that maybe as a more in a graph, some people are visually, it helps out. So we'll look at where we are with our existing debt certificates, our 2012, 2013 certificates. Right now, we pay $1.5 million. It's due every December 15th. And when we pay those debt certificates, we transfer 60% of the $1.5 million from the recreation fund. So it's a little over $900,000 at the end of each year that we transfer. And then the other 40% we transfer from the general fund, which is a little over $600,000. So the 6 + 9 gets you to the $1.5 million. We can see the remaining life of those debt certificates. What's most important is to look at this $1.5 million that is fairly consistent year over year. When we refund those certificates and issue new ones tomorrow, we will still be on the hook for this last payment here in 2021. It's due December 15th. And then we would start with next December 15th, 2022 with this new $15 million. So we're showing the 17 million in 2 columns of 15 million plus the 2 million. So we're going to focus on the 15 million, but you can see the new $15 million payment is very minimally different than what we were paying already on those 2012, 2013 certificates. And we are going to be paying that amount for the next 10 years. It's very consistent. So again, we would still be transferring the 60% from the recreation fund and 40% of this amount from the general fund and pay that every December 15th. So the debt certificates are funded by operations. And then we have the other $2 million, which is what we're really saying is debt service for the Park Avenue project. And that $2 million is being amortized in payments over the next 20 years. And the reason we have this separated from the other 15 million is because we are going to pay this debt service out of the Park Avenue fund, as well as other sources of revenue that will be streaming into that Park Avenue. I shouldn't call it a fund, I'm sorry, it's a cost center at this point. So that's how we're looking to get that extra money. It's not going to come out of the plan is it would not come out of the general fund or out of overall recreation fund, but out of the Park Avenue cost center. And so when you add those together, then you see what our total debt service payment is for the next 10 years. So basically it's what we're already accustomed to, plus this extra $118,000 a year for Park Avenue. Now you can see on here at the end of 10 years, because we have a drop off in what our payment would be, we could take the option, or the board at that time, board and staff 10 years from now, could take the option of issuing another $9.1 million in debt certificates that would then up this amount starting here to the amount that we're already accustomed to paying each and every year. And again, that's a decision to be made 10 years from now, but just so you have that option. And that verbiage is also the verbiage that we put into the quote unquote 11-year capital projects fund model, showing that tier 1 through 5, those projects, that we would be able to fund all of those through the next 11 years rather easily with the funding that we have, that we're putting in place with this ordinance. Also, just keep in mind too, which was also reflected in those 11-year 11-year funding model, that we also have general obligation bonds. And we are looking to issue another $5.5 million of those in 2024, and another $6 million of those in 2028. And then another $5 million in 2031, and then every 3 to 4 years after that, depending on how market conditions are at that point in time. And so we hope that you will approve our ordinance 2021-04 this evening. And if that goes through, then we will be selling our debt certificates tomorrow. And we would plan to close on the deal and receive our cash on December 1st. So does anyone have any questions?
Jen,
None from me, thank you.
Cal?
I just have a statement. Do you want me to wait till I make a motion, or do you want to?
No, make your statement. Make your statement.
Okay. I have a lot to say, and I apologize in advance, but we've spent a lot of time, actually months or years, talking about this, and it's finally coming to happen. Let me begin by discussing the district. And I know that I read the district's website, and I read the emails, and I noticed that we just put on the website that the Moody's came back and designated us as rated AAA. And I know some of that has to do with the community that we live in, but also a lot of it has to do with our financial department, our finance department, who and their way that they handle the taxpayers' money over the years, and the reporting, and it allows the district to borrow money at the lowest possible interest rate. And again, I'm repeating myself, but applaud our staff for ushering the district into a position where we do get that AAA bond rating, and we are taking advantage of the low interest rate. That, in addition to what the AAA does, we're in historic low interest rate period right now, which allows us to take this bond issue allows us to take advantage of that. So it's important to note to the John Q. public who may watch this tape or watching right now, is that we are basically creating revenue or funds in order to take care of the 5-year capital plan, tier 1 through tier 5 projects, greenprint projects, a lot of things. There's still some things that are unfunded, but this gives an opportunity. And it's kind of, I was thinking about this when Mary Lynn was talking. This is like an invest in the district plan. We're basically investing in the district. We're borrowing money to improve many aspects of how we serve the public, and it's being done by keeping our debt service flat, so it doesn't cost the taxpayer any more money. So it's a win-win for everybody. So I am excited. I mean, I'm never excited about borrowing money. It always makes me nervous, but I am excited that that we have gotten the sage advice from Bob Lewis and his company, and also Mary Lynn and the rest of the finance department, to allow us to take advantage again of historic low interest rates and our AAA bond rating, and this one-time opportunity to borrow money to invest in the Park District. And when it comes time for a motion to approve, if it's okay with the chair, I would like to make that motion.
Well, thank you for your comments, and the sage advice we've received from Marilyn, staff, and Bob Lewis. Yes, very definitely. So is there a motion to approve ordinance 2021-04? And I don't think I have to read the rest of its caption to make it official. Cal, would you like to make the motion?
Yeah, I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
and President Rottenberg.
I vote aye as well. We have a quorum and the motion carries. We have approved ordinance 2021-04, an ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $22,750,000 of general obligation certificates.
Arnie, just, I don't want to forget the rest of the staff because I know I highlighted the finance firm, but a lot went into this. Everybody, coming up with the numbers. Jeff has worked tirelessly trying to create our different tiers and our different projects that are going to be funded with this. I mean, everybody, I'm looking at all the names on my screen right now, everybody and more people who are not on my names on the screen, everybody contributed to make this happen. And so I really look forward to the next couple of years, 3-4 years, when the community is going to see a material difference to the district based on what we just did. So thank you to everybody in the staff.
Thank you, Cal, for doing that. All right, we can move to new business now. Speaking of Jeff Smith, draft of the 5-year capital plan. Jeff?
All right, thank you very much. Give me a moment here and I will share my screen.
Oh, he's back.
All right, can everyone see the presentation?
Yes. Yes,
All right.
yes.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to give a brief summary of the 2022 5-year capital plan. Now, the detailed document was included in the board packet, and we went through this plan in detail at 2 finance committee meetings on September 22nd and October 6th. So just a quick review, as was just mentioned in the last presentation, we did implement a tier system to prioritize projects last year. It was introduced as 5 separate tiers, and this year we've added a 6th tier, so I'll just quickly go through those. So as the board's aware, tier 1 is the highest priority. It's safety and legal compliance. Tier 2 are existing items that are in immediate need of replacement or repair. Tier 3 are our more standard scheduled items along the lines of roofs, HVACs, court replacements, asphalt, things that we can predict and we do schedule out. Tier 4 are improvements to existing items, and Tier 5 are introduction of new items or new amenities. And then our new tier 6 is what we're calling unfunded. These are a more formal way of identifying projects that we would like to do, but they are currently unfunded. They might need more alternative funding strategies. And it also allows staff and the board to see these and make decisions in the future if we do want to reprioritize and fund them. So here is kind of a very high level view of the 5-year capital plan. Real quick, I'll go through this sheet. The first column here is the current budget we're working under, and then this is what we're projecting to finish the year out at. Our 2022 capital budget is right here at 11.5 million. And then we have our next 4 years, bringing us all the way to 2026. The green row here are our repair and replacement tiers, so tier 1 to 3. And then the yellow row are our tier 4 to 5, are our new and improvement tiers. And then that brings us to a total, and this would be our budgeted amount in 2022. And then down here, we've added the tier 6, and you can see, and those were beginning in 2023. There aren't any in 2022 because the idea is that moving forward, we can address these and determine if we want to change a tier or move them just to a future year. So I do want to point out that the 2022 capital plan will be included with the 2022 budget and appropriation that will be presented to the board in December and brought for approval in January. The remaining years here, 23 to 26, will be included as an appendix in the 2022 budget. So what I'd like to do for the rest of the presentation is just focus on the 2022 capital plan. I want to provide a little more of a summary. So as I mentioned, it's 11.5 million. And what I'd like to do now is just walk through the different areas of the plan and touch on the total amount and just kind of highlight a few projects in there. So the first area here is district-wide annual. And one of the projects in this area is replacement of monument signs and park signs in various facilities or various parks throughout the district. And that's going to include at Sunset Woods as part of our playground project, as well as a number of neighborhood parks. Technology, a couple of the items included here are the completion of our soon to be released updated website, and also a new app for the park district. For parks equipment, there's a number of items in here, including some pickup trucks and also mowers and replacement of a backhoe. And for our parks, a few projects I wanted to point out were Millard Park. So the bluff restoration project, which we'll be undertaking soon, that came out of and was identified from our beach management plan. Also at Moraine Park, we have the reconstruction of the path budgeted, and that will reopen access to the Moraine Beach and also off-leash dog park. And lastly, in the parks, we also have, if I'm forgetting it here, of course, it's Maroney Park Playground. We will be replacing that playground next year. As for facilities, at Centennial, we will be renovating that facility. That's going to include some interior improvements such as upgrades to the lobby, the locker rooms, the restrooms, the entry, and also some exterior improvements such as the addition of a turnaround drop-off right in front of the building, plus also resurfacing of the parking lots and replacement and addition of parking lot lights. At Deer Creek Racquet Club, we're going to be starting the planning for the renovation of the locker room and the possible conversion of the racquetball courts. At Golf Learning Center, we plan to replace the monument sign at the entry. At Heller Nature Center, we have a project to do some repairs and some improvements to the lobby interpretive exhibits. And at Hidden Creek Aqua Park, we have a number of projects, including replacement of the shade structures and also replacement of the pool shell. At Park Avenue Beach, of course, as we spoke about earlier this evening, we have the replacement of the breakwater and boat ramp. And we also are planning to repair the eroded portion of parking lot on the far south end of the property. At the Recreation Center, we have a pool deck replacement and also gym lighting and gym flooring resurfacing. Sunset Valley, we are going to begin phase 1 of our bridge replacement project with the replacement of 2 cart path bridges. And also at Sunset Valley next year, we are going to be replacing a portion of the asphalt cart paths. And lastly, at Westridge Center, we will begin the engineering and design for the replacement of this facility. So that's everything I wanted to share. Are there any specific questions about the plan?
Jen,
None from me.
Al?
I have no questions. We've seen this before many times now, I guess, at the Finance Committee, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the prior agenda items. So I look forward to many of these changes, and then in the year's future as the 5-year capital plan is implemented.
Good, thank you. I have no questions. Once again, Cal says it all for me, so I don't have to say anything. Jeff, thank you very much, unless there's more to your presentation.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, then we'll go to Executive Director Romes to present the Parks Foundation update. Bye, Jeff.
President Ruttenberg. Okay, so yes, the Parks Foundation met on October 19th. This was last week. I attended that meeting and they have lots of positive updates to share. I'm just going to touch on a few regarding some of the capital campaigns that they have been working on. Actually, before I do that, I do want to make notation that the Parks Foundation did apply for a grant with the Highland Park Community Foundation. And we are very excited and grateful to the HB Community Foundation who did award Parks Foundation a grant for an amount of $3,500, which is specifically going to be used for the FYI program that they have been implementing for the past, I think, 4 years now, which essentially provides critical funding to non-residents, specifically those in Highwood, to participate in our Learn to Swim program. So we've seen that as an essential program and service to provide low-income families and those who cannot afford our general pricing. And the foundation makes that possible through their fundraising and grant efforts. So kudos to the foundation. That program continues to sell out with those families, and I know they're very appreciative. Also, just a couple capital campaign updates. They've been raising funds to help support the construction of the gathering area at Sunset Woods Playground, that area between the two playgrounds of the older and younger children. And so their campaign goal is $25,000, and they're a little over halfway there. So they're still seeking donors for that project, and certainly can go on their website and submit a donation or have a donation brick, which will be placed at the site of that gathering area. So they're doing very well there, and very grateful for their efforts in regards to that. And then finally, the Park Avenue boating facility, they are doing a capital campaign as well, seeking to raise a minimum of $300,000 to help support the funding of the project that Smith Group gave an update on tonight. Very happy to report a few things. One, there was an anonymous resident who made a significant donation. It is a matching donation, so they have agreed to match up to $150,000 in donations. So any donation made in any amount, they will match up to $150,000. Also did provide an upfront donation of $50,000. We've also received a few other donations in the amounts of $5,000, $1,000, and there's a $10,000 one as well, I believe. And so that is very quietly at this point moving forward, but it is moving forward. And the foundation, of course, is very excited about the progress and that anonymous resident donor, and very grateful to those families that have supported this project. Certainly want to mention Gene and David Sogan, who I know put in a ton of effort with this already on this fundraising campaign committee. And there have been others as well who have been putting in time and effort to move this forward. So have a bit of a ways to go, but it's a great start, and we're very grateful for that. And that's all I have for the Parks Foundation.
No, that's still very good. Very good progress. It's nice to have them helping us.
Yeah.
So while you're sitting there, do you want to give the director's report?
I will. I'll give updates on special events. This past Friday, we did have our HP Pumpkins event at Larry Fink Park, and there were over 400 participants, families, including Commissioner Freeman, I believe, was there to walk through our haunted trails at Larry Fink Park. So we received a lot of really good positive feedback in regards to the event. And there are pictures on our Facebook page. So that was a very successful Halloween event. And there are a few more coming up. There is the Scary Skate, which is this Friday from 7 to 8:30 at Centennial. And you can head over to the Highland Park Golf Learning Center. And there will be some Halloween mini golf that you can check out this Thursday through Saturday. And then finally, we have our last drive-in movie of the year. We'll be showing Hocus Pocus, and I believe tickets are sold out for that event. There is a wait list that you can sign up for in case spots do open, but that is this Thursday in the Recreation Center parking lot, and we're excited for that. The last thing that I'll just give an update on, since at the last special park board meeting that we had, there was an approval of a new vaccine and testing policy that was passed in an effort to suppress the COVID-19 virus. I just want to send a huge shout out of thanks to our Human Resources Department, led by Director Donna Dunn. They've done a tremendous job in corralling and working with all the staff to ensure that this policy is implemented smoothly. And also want to give a huge thanks to all the staff at the Park District who have been cooperating and been in support of complying with this policy, which does go into effect next week. So this policy, as well as all the health and safety guidelines that the Park District has been implementing to protect staff and the community, are obviously in place to protect our residents, participants, and staff. And we're going to continue to monitor all the recommendations from CDC, as well as enforce those state guidelines. And then just a couple of other things I just want to wrap up with. I just want to take a moment to really just publicly acknowledge, as we all know, the past 18 months have been very stressful for life for so many people during the pandemic. And I want to ensure the public that the Park District is doing everything that we can to continue to prioritize health and safety as we continue to deliver programs in the most creative and safe way that we possibly can. Obviously, we believe our programs and services are really critical to mental health, as well as, of course, physical health. And with that, I also want to comment that it's very typical now if you drive through any part of town to see help wanted signs in almost any workplace. You probably also heard the term the Great Resignation and things in that manner in response to the many challenges that many faced over the past 18 months. So the Park District is no different. We certainly are looking for staff. We're short on staff right now. But what I really want to do is just acknowledge the staff that we have right now, who really are the district's most treasured and certainly valued and valuable. And I appreciate all the board comments tonight. It means a lot to me and to all the staff. And we are a workplace that, of course, values health and safety, but we also are a district that values people. And that includes, of course, our staff and our residents. So thank you to all our staff. Thank you to the Park Board, and really thank you to all the community who has been supporting the Park District through their participation programs and services currently and through the pandemic. We appreciate all of you. So those are my final words, and thanks.
I think, Brian, that your final words are the words that we would want to share as well with you and with the staff and our community as a whole. And so thank you. Do we have any board comments?
I just have one.
Calvin, what is that behind you, by the way?
That is actually a quilt that my mother did.
Oh,
So if anyone wants to check it out, it's on our wall. It's actually really pretty.
it is.
So, my mom has touched everybody in this room, so everyone gets that. Okay. So I just want to acknowledge the hard work and the leadership of and Dan Voss would appreciate this, our big toe, our executive director. Brian, I know this has been a tough year and a half, and there's certain meetings that are kind of pivotal meetings of the district. I'm the longest serving commissioner, and this is one of those pivotal meetings because we did something momentous tonight, and hopefully tomorrow goes off well. And it couldn't happen without you. So I wanted to publicly thank you for all your hard work and your leadership, and I like you being our big toe, so to speak. So thank you.
That's very nice, Cal. Jen, do you have anything? It's a hard act to follow, Jen.
Yeah, I'm just very excited, and I feel I've been feeling the buildup for months now since I got here. And I feel like we just keep putting one foot in front of the other and trusting Brian and the staff. This has been really exciting for me. So I want to thank everybody for making this, an idea. It would have been. Brian, I think we talk almost every day.
Well,
So thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Oh, sorry.
no, not a problem. I closed my door. At this point, let's open to the public to address the board. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the board? Any hands going up?
Yes, there is. Let her introduce herself. Katie Wren is in Shenko. I completely probably didn't say that the right way, but you are at least I'm trying to unmute you. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Sarah, you're still muted.
Unmute. All right, can you hear me? Sorry, there we go. Hi, my name is Katie Brazychenko, and I am relatively new to Highland Park. So kind of like how you mentioned, like when you drive around the city, you see a lot of help wanted signs. I'm sure you guys notice now when you drive around the city, you see a lot of new faces. A lot of people have either moved to bigger houses or moved out of the city. I personally came from downtown River North. I had sent the board an email a couple weeks ago. We are in, and I'm speaking for the neighborhood of High Ridge, which is just west of Hibernia in the kind of the northwest corner, if you guys are unfamiliar. And my biggest challenge that I have as a new mom and a young mom in our neighborhood is that there aren't any.
Have we lost Katie?
Hello?
Yes, you cut out.
Sorry, I don't know where it cut out from.
The biggest challenge.
The biggest challenge, yes. So one of the biggest challenges as a young mom in my neighborhood is that there aren't any walking distance parks. We have one, the closest one would be Olson Park. And then even if we drive to it, the parking lot is all the way on the other side of the park. So it's another like 15-minute walk and a stroller ride to get to the park for us to play, for us to like sit for 15 minutes and then we have to go home. So I had proposed in my email that there's an empty lot in High Ridge that's been listed for sale for a few years now. And I'm speaking for my community when I say that we all agree this would be a phenomenal place for a new park. And I'm a complete novice at this. I'll say that up front. So I'm not entirely sure what the process would be for us to work together or to have you guys consider putting up a park in that lot.
And I'll just note, Katie, I believe you got my response to your email.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate you and sharing your comment. I have shared it with the park board. We'll the next steps that we're going.
I'm having trouble hearing. Is anybody else having trouble hearing?
Yeah, and there's interference somewhere.
Yeah.
Barney, can you mute too?
I was.
Oh, okay. I don't know what the deal is.
Can't hear me?
I hear you better now.
Better now.
Better now? Okay. I was just reiterating that Katie did email and I responded and I shared that with the park board, and per that response, we certainly will have further discussions with the park board and follow up with you, Katie, in the next few days on sort of what next steps might look like in how the board goes about in considering this type of plot.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you guys taking that into consideration. Sorry, that's my son in the background. And I want to also commend you guys on the awesome job after watching that presentation and seeing how wonderful the financials are and how everything is in such a good situation right now. So I do really appreciate hearing this. I found this to be really informative.
Well, thank you. And of course, you're welcome to any meeting that we have, and we will consider this.
And Brian, can-
Just one last question, if I could ask. I'm sorry, Katie. Do you know what the sale price is, the asking price for that lot?
It is, I just had it up, 459,000. It's an empty lot. There's nothing on there. I guess the story goes that there was a house there that had burned down several years ago, and now the owner is just trying to sell the lot vacant.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Brian, my suggestion is that we can, at the facilities meeting, we can maybe have it referred to them and talk about it at that committee.
It will be on the facilities committee agenda, Cal. All right. Is there anything else? Any other member of the public?
There's nobody else from the public?
Such as Council Member Annette?
I just wanted to commend you, having just been through the whole financial process with the city. I'm so impressed with the way your finances and everything has kind of fallen into place, even with the pandemic. It's really impressive. And also, frankly, I'm sure you all hear always what's going on in the city. And so we hear around town about what's going on with various projects going at the Park District. And I'm so impressed with the plans that you presented tonight. I think it's come a long way with a lot of public input from neighbors, from voters, from a lot of other people. And it's the way transparency and process should work. So I just wanted to commend you all on a job well done. But I also wanted to say, considering in 1 month you saved $120,000, I think you should put this off for 2 more months and see what we could come up with at the end of that.
I like that math. I like that math.
I'm just very impressed. So
All right,
thank you
thank
for having me.
All right. Thank you. One last question, Brian. Is there anybody else that's asked to speak?
There is not.
Okay. Then, is there a motion to go into closed session pursuant to the following section of the Open Meetings Act, Section 2C5, the purchase or lease of real estate, including discussion on whether a certain parcel of property should be acquired? Jen? Cal?
I didn't realize we were having closed session tonight, but is it going to be long?
No.
Okay, then I moved. I moved the whatever Barney's requested motion. I move.
Jen? All right. Roxanne, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
President Rottenberg.